what's important today is the coalescence of various different groups who have one single objective, and that is to remove what they describe as the sword of Damocles that's hanging over all their heads in relation to their retirement. In fact, for many, a good third of their life being, as it were, overshadowed by deprivation and denial of the way government policy is planned out in relation to pensions.
I think the battle bus is just such a different concept. It's such a unique way to get the message and the plight of the 1950s women out there. And we've driven, around a lot of London today for a good couple of hours. And people are really noticing the message that's going out there. They're looking at the bus, they're listening to the tremendous noise that these women have been making on the bus, and hopefully they'll all go back home or get on their phones and they'll start looking at, oh, what's this all about then? Because that's what we need. We need this message to permeate throughout the whole of society.
We're representing 3.6 million women out there that have been denied their pensions and have seen a rise of 6 years on their pension age in a 4.5-year period, which is not fair.
And also what is great is that the people from WSP, the people from BackTo60 have come together as one voice and told the government we're not going away. It's terribly sorry, but we're here, and if you carry on like this, we might well be back again with another demonstration.
This is a sea change where the groups have agreed to come together, happy to stand together outside Caxton House, happy to sit next to each other on the bus, because there was a time when that would never have happened. So we're absolutely thrilled about that.
So basically the elections have galvanised this campaign in a sense. They've given more opportunity for people to get their case over it. And today's demo was a really fantastic demo in the sense that they brought the campaign to Westminster.
They've picked on the wrong group. 50s women, we've never been politically active, but we are now, and we're standing together shoulder to shoulder with an enemy in common.
The recent local elections were far more interesting than the way they've been spun by both parties. I mean, both parties have said it was a stalemate, but actually in parts of the country where the Labour Party and to an extent the Liberal Democrats had no purchase or hold at all, they ended up winning seats.
There's 3.6 million women, and if we all stand together, especially in elections, they've got nowhere to go.
For the 50s women, one of the most interesting games was in Worthing and Shoreham, whose MP, Tim Lawton, is actually the MP running the all-party group on pensions for the change in the age. And in that area, he, with a 5,000 majority, found that 7 seats changed hands, all to the Labour Party, in an area that has not had a Labour councillor since 1966. So all over Europe, people are taking the same view as in Britain. We don't want this anymore. We're not going to stand for it, and I'm afraid if you don't do anything about it, we'll vote for someone else.
There's been an amazing unity, and I think the politicians over there and the civil servants in the departments down there just better start listening, because the various groups have recognised the need to come together, the need for solidarity, end divide and rule.
So SOS Silence of Suicide was approached by the BackTo60 group to do a mental health impact survey. So we examined the direct impacts on women, psychological impacts, as a direct result of the SPA deferrals, and the results are absolutely shocking.
The impact on the lives of these women is exactly the same as the Windrush generation. Members of the Windrush generation locked up, detained, lose their jobs, some of them committing suicide because it's so bad. Exactly the same for the women. They've lost their security, and it's more than the money and the actual house and the flat or home. The homes, that's bad enough, but the effect on the mind of being rejected in this way at such a late stage in their lives.
We had over 20,500 responses from women directly affected, and over 35% of those women had been affected by suicidal thoughts.
They must have known that if they were going to do this, that the impact on that generation was going to be devastating.
So the findings of the SOS survey were absolutely shocking. In fact, they're more than shocking, they're horrific and really, really frightening, and it shows we've got a problem. Of over 20,500 respondents, 35% of those have feelings of suicide. As a direct result of the impacts the SPA deferral is having on them, on their psychological well-being, their means to exist, their means to live is being removed, it's being eradicated from them. We're having, we know people that have lost their homes, that can't afford to go out on day trips with their grandchildren because they simply don't have the money. And apart from that, we have, I think it was over 10% of people that responded have engaged in self-harm. Now, you know, in the worst case scenario, that could be a precursor to feelings of suicide and maybe acts of suicide or acts of attempted suicide. You know, that the warnings are out there. You know, we've published these figures, they're out there on the website, people have shared them. The government must surely know about this, but it's the same thing, isn't it? Mental health comes last. When are they going to listen? How many 1950s women are going to succumb to the pressures which they find just too much, you know, before somebody actually sits up and says, hang on, we've got a problem here and we need to address this. We need to look after these women.
Pensions are paid out of the National Insurance Fund, which everybody contributes to. And the government's biggest case against the 50s women is, sorry, we can't afford that, we're going to have to put up national insurance enormously, and you know, that's the end of it, we're not giving you back. It could cost us £77 billion, they say. But they're not telling the real truth about this.
Well, I think the Pensions Secretary, who apparently is saying this is one of the worst decisions, if not the worst decision that could have been done, what are you doing about it? You can reverse that if you really want. Don't tell me you haven't got the money.
One, the pension fund is not in the red, it is in the black, and there is a surplus, and there will be a surplus right up to about 2025. So there is fat in the National Insurance Fund to pay this. But the other major thing that really needs a forensic investigation is the government has raided the National Insurance Fund, meant for your pensions and your rights as well to get unemployment benefit and other things, a job seeker's allowance. It often depends on contributions. They've used the money for other purposes. They haven't been very clear exactly how many other purposes they've used it for, but certainly since the financial crash of 2008, this money has disappeared. And frankly, the 50s women need to know what's happened, and the government needs to put the money back that it stole from it. bus today is a really good thing for the women. One, they brought the visibility. They've shouted round Parliament Square. They've gone to the Department of Work and Pensions and told them we're here, and the office staff will have seen they were here.
My name is Celia Clifford. I worked for DWP head office for a number of years in disability unit, but when the 1995 Act came in, I was managing job centres in the southwest, and at no point did we have any leaflets, any information, any posters up advising people. And when I worked here, we didn't have any information in around the canteen or in the pay pack, in the pay slips, nothing. So none of us got any information at all. I used to work here. If we weren't even told about the changes to our state pension age, what chance did anyone else have?
It's like so much of government. There's an assumption, oh well, they can put up with it. We've got a terrible situation and we'll take their pensions to sort it out. And, don't ask any questions. Yes, they have a point they make about equalisation. But actually, the way they're doing it is totally unequal and discriminatory.
We're taking that sword of Damocles held over 50s women's head, and we're placing it over the heads of those who are unfairly keeping our pensions from us. And they will be hearing from us as we launch the Letter Before claim in our crowdfunder.
In order to, as it were, ask questions that have not been asked up to now, the women have come together to mount effectively a challenge, to ask the questions that should have been asked long ago and weren't because they didn't know. The letter before action, the letter before claim, is intended to put people on notice that there are, in this case women, but it happens in all sorts of other cases, women standing together and are prepared to mount a challenge and the scope of the challenge. Now, it's big, so how far it'll get, it's impossible to predict. But what is important is that the women themselves, by coming together, by seeing that it is possible to start the process, how far it goes and the extent to which you get conclusions at the end of it will depend on fortitude, persistence, stamina, and obviously at the end of the day, the quality of the arguments despite all the odds.
On the campaigning side, from Anti-Christian campaigns, we get notified by people, thank you so much because you're helping us to raise the visibility. All of this feeds back into the legal challenge. It shows just how many women are affected and how many women are being given a voice by one voice.